Ladies and gents, this is the moment you've waited for.
This is the greatest show! And now, here's your host, Clint Arthur.
All right, everybody. This is Clint Arthur, and welcome to the greatest show of all time, right here on 77 WABC Radio in New York City.
Here's part 2 of my amazing interview with the one and only Dr. Drew Pinsky.
Some dude showed up one night on the radio station who was Kennedy's manager. You know Kennedy from Fox TV? Well, then she was a disc jockey at our radio station. And then she went to MTV. I don't know if you remember this history.
Yeah.
Well, this manager shows up and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing? What do you want to do?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't know what whoa, stay away from me." I did not know what he was talking about. Here's what I'm doing. I'm doing radio, and you leave me alone so I can practice medicine. That's sort of my thing. And he kind of kept showing up. And he goes, "Let's go out to lunch and let's talk about things." I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But and then Kennedy called me. She goes, "You can trust this guy. He knows what he's doing. Meet with him." And on a handshake, he went, "Let me just see what I can do." And my entire everything was built by him. So I didn't know what I was doing.
I'd say that's a mentor.
Yeah, manager, mentor. And he had a vision and he executed it. And I was just busy trying to practice medicine and then do my thing wherever I was put. But one of the other things, now we're at the end of the, so that's sort of how TV happened. He was really executing that. But he also, as the 90s rolled away, he said, "You need a publicist." So, what's that? I don't know what that is. How do I do that? And the publicist, it gets a little complicated here because I had a web company for 5 minutes in the go-go days of a friend of mine from college and high school went to Harvard Business School, and he called me and said, "We should do a website." What's that? I'll try that. And he raised $10 million like that off I don't know if you remember the late 90s. It was ridiculous. Companies were fantastically funded to do nothing but burn money and lose money. We were one of those. And we had a PR publicity team within that. And I just kept saying, all I need is that one publicist. That's all you need. You don't need all these. Just give me the publicist. And so she went into her own business, and I grabbed her. And she had very deep relationships with all the news outlets. So that's another piece that's important. If you have somebody that the news outlets trust to get somebody there when they need it, again, the news is trying to, they're rolling fast when you're producing news. And if they have a publicist they can rely on to bring somebody who's going to nail it and make everybody look good, the producers, the host, and everything, they're listening to that publicist. And if you're one of the in the group that publicist represents, she can trade you out for somebody else, right? Like, Dr. Drew's not available tonight, but I have, Dr. Smith, and you can trust me. He's good.
Good.
That's how that works. And so I was doing that through a bit of the 2000s. And then some guys showed up and they went, "We want to do this thing." I was way into addiction medicine at that point, and a lot of the commentary I was doing publicly was about what I was yelling about the opiate epidemic, and nobody was listening to me, but that's what I was doing a lot of chanting about. And help back then, the brain model of addiction was just getting started, and people didn't really understand addiction back then, so there was a lot of opportunity to go and talk about it. Television producers showed up and they said, "We want to do this show where you treat celebrities." And I was like, "God, that would be very interesting because we need to show what treatment is. You will never be able to do that. Good idea. You'll never do it." You pointing at somebody? No. Oh, I saw. Okay, good. And I was like, "How do we do it?" But I had done enough television at that point to kind of know what a pitch was. And so I was like, well, it's good to go around and pitch and get seen by all these producers. So although there's no way they can do this, I'll go do the pitch. So we do the pitch, and lo and behold, VH1 shows interest. And I was like, oh, gee, come on. No, I just went into hiding. I just hid. I was like, this is not possible. And Bob Forrest, who was my lead counselor, the guy with the hat and the glasses that you may have seen on that program, He came in my office one day and he goes, God, I am so sick. We were treating a lot of celebrities. We just happened to be at the time. And he goes, I'm so sick of how the press is presenting our patients as though they're on a spa vacation or if they're making excuses for their behavior. They are sick and they're working hard. We need to do a TV show where we show how hard they work and how difficult this disease is. And I was astonished. I said, well, I told him the story. I said, we were talking to somebody and they want to do it. And he just slammed his hands down. He goes, we got to do it. And he walked out and I thought, okay, we'll try. Still took a lot of really interesting, obviously it couldn't be done in a hospital, which I predicted could not be done, which was factually true. But I took my treatment team and I put them in a residential facility and used their policies and procedures, and suddenly we could do this. So that was my education in reality television. There's a lot there I could tell you about if you ever get sucked into something like that. You want to hear that? No.
In reality television?
Oh boy, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys ever done much reality
Who's
stuff?
interested in reality television?
You done reality TV? You've done it?
No, they're interested in
You're
reality.
interested in it?
Yeah.
Okay. Please go there. Do it. We need to be involved with it. All of us. It needs us. It depends on how you're getting involved with it. If you're like a consulting guest that's coming in, like I had done a little bit of that before I was the focus of a reality show. Celebrity Fit Club. My first meeting with Jeff Conway was when he overdosed on Xanax during Celebrity Fit Club. They asked me to come in, like, we got a guy, we think he's drinking a little too much, no big deal, no big deal. And I sit down with him, cameras, and Jeff Conway's story emerges of, long-standing opiate addiction and, 30 milligrams a day of Xanax. And I was like, oh my God, how could you bring this guy on a show? I was astonished. So I got him out of there, got him treated, and for the first time. And that I was not encumbered in any way. I just went in and did my job, although getting him, you realize getting the people extracted from reality is very difficult, but you can do it. When I was involved with the show, I learned something quickly. Have you seen the TV show Unreal? Unreal. That's how reality is produced. That is how it is produced. I can introduce you to people that are being represented on that scripted show in the real world. So they come in, reality producers. I don't want to disparage my peers. I'm about to talk shit about somebody, so please turn your cameras off if you're rolling on this, or maybe cut it out. But they come in and they stir it up. That's their job, is to stir it up, to create story. And obviously in a treatment world, they can't use their number one secret weapon, which is alcohol. I mean, look at the shows and the amount of alcohol that's consumed in these things. But they come in and they immediately engage in splitting. And when you have a group of addicts or in a mental health setting, when you start splitting, somebody's gonna kill themselves. I mean, it is like really serious business. And so they'll go, hey, Jessica, I just heard Monique saying that you're a bitch, and what do you think about that? And it's like, I had to literally run into these rooms and go, these are sick people. Will you get out of here? But it was really something to behold. They have no sense of what they're doing, and remember that reality shows are not reality. They are people with psychopathology, primarily axis 2 disorders, if we're still allowed to use the axes, primarily axis 2, with alcohol, with people whipping them into frenzies, and then unreal, extra reality circumstances. The circumstances are set up to be. So my experience was, hey, I'll do the next season, but here's the deal. No producer speaks to or makes eye contact with any of my goddamn patients. Do you understand me? And the same applies to me. They can ask me 5 questions. Doctor, how's the patient doing? Doctor, what's the discharge plan? Doctor, how's the family therapy going? Doctor, what's this gonna cost? Doctor, what's the aftercare plan? One more question, and I'm walking off this damn set. I swear to God. And they were, and they were friends of mine. I had everybody all freaked out and scared, but it allowed me to do this thing safely and properly, and we had some very extraordinary experiences as a result. Something we did not anticipate, I thank God, happened. Two things that were completely unexpected. One was, and there's a whole discipline now out of Harvard now to pay addicts to get treatment. We invented this, and it works. So they wanted to get paid, they wanted to be on TV, so they stayed in treatment to the end, which I don't know if you work in ever a drug treatment center. It's hard to keep people in treatment. You push them, they bolt. I could push them hard and they would stay.
Because they were getting paid.
Getting paid, and they were still on TV. It was great. It really extraordinary. And they all went through this weird transformation where they came in just to be on TV and get paid. They took their treatment seriously because they saw how serious we were, and all of them, all except for maybe one, ended up wanting to be an inspiration for other people. So they wanted their story to be told, and they wanted it to be a good outcome. This was, thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's beautiful.
Who knew? So.
Hey, was your father supportive of your career choices?
I'm so tired of talking about myself.
Was your father supportive of your career choices?
He was confused.
Confused?
Yes. My dad was a family practitioner. He could not figure out the radio thing I was doing. He thought that was just some sort of silly, hobby. But I remember when it was Thanksgiving and I had a DVD of our first couple shows of Celebrity Rehab, and we had some kids there, and I said, hey, well, let's watch this, see what you guys think of it, because I didn't know how it was going to be received. And the kids kept going, I need another, give me more, we see another episode. And I remember at the end of about 3, my dad was sitting in the back, and he looked like he literally was in a wind tunnel. And he was just like, what was that? What did I just see? He could not figure out what that was, which was kind of interesting. And to be fair, his, I went deep into the psychiatric, part of our discipline, and he really did not fully understand that piece, even as a family practitioner, which is unfortunate. You have to, in my words, please, I have lots of feelings about psychiatry and medicine, and if those of you are trained in both, you got it. But man, make sure there's not a medical problem before you make a psychiatric diagnosis. And if there's a psychiatric diagnosis, get a consult with a psychiatrist. They know so much more than we do in terms of crafting the right treatment for exactly what that patient is. We don't refer enough. We don't. And then the psychiatrists start thinking they're internists and they don't get the proper medical evaluation first. Or I've had many cases where they send the patient to me saying, it is a medical problem, it's not a psychiatric problem, and it just isn't. It just isn't.
You're a very passionate person. Like, I've interviewed a lot of big celebrities. Nobody's ever moved so much on the chair, and I'm not criticizing you. I think it's awesome. You're very passionate.
I'm used to pacing. Maybe I should get up and actually pace.
You're very passionate.
That's what I normally do.
So what I wanted to ask you was, do you think that there is a relationship between sexuality and creativity and passion?
Yes, it's called libido. It's all one thing, according to Dr. Freud.
It's all one thing.
It is, but of course it's, parses out many different ways, but it is libido, yes.
Yes. Do you have any thoughts on Chinese medicine?
I don't, except, I don't know, I'm interested in alternative ideas and approaches and things. I just don't know enough about it to be speaking about it. And as an internist, particularly when this was very popular back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I saw a lot of hepatotoxicity, enough to scare me about what was going on.
Okay. What topics should doctors avoid talking about in public?
I sort of feel, it's easy to say politics, but I don't think we can avoid it anymore. I mean, if you have an opinion, somebody's going to politicize it.
We're living in a political world. It's like everything is political, right?
I know, it's awful.
Well, it's only awful because people don't want to hear each other.
Well, it's awful because it's so tribal and so polarized, but it's awful because it is literally intruded into our relationship with our patients and our ability to practice. That is unconscionable. Talk show host who just learned how to pronounce a medication 2 weeks ago that I've been prescribing for 30 years have a strong opinion about whether I should be prescribing. That is a kind of insanity I could not have seen coming. So I want us to be able to comment on everything. I feel like we need to be careful. be careful. It is a very treacherous, slippery landscape out there, and it's easy to get clobbered. And I would say, don't, if you get yourself in some sort of storm, just keep your compass in front of you and keep moving. Don't cave to it, because I know physicians that do this have the right intent. And really, that's what's important here. You may say something that triggers somebody or is even wrong. We say wrong things, we do. But keep the North Star ahead and just keep moving. Keep moving and be resilient. I will tell you, one of my biggest crap storms was in this building. May I share?
We're in the building.
So I was on HLN for a long time. That show would be killing right now if we were still doing it, but in their infinite wisdom, they canceled us. They are really lovely managers here. They said, you know what, we're going to cancel you, but don't tell your staff, and we're not going to tell anybody, because it was something about they wouldn't get it was their disability or some sort of something that the staff would get if we waited another month to tell everybody. There was something that he just wanted me and the executive producer to know that it was stopping, but we'll announce it in a month, and it will be, that way the staff will get their termination or whatever it was. I can't remember what it was. It was something to benefit the staff, and I'm like, thank you. We have a great staff, and we'll happily keep it quiet. 2 weeks later, I was on Don Lemon's show, and we're both like, what's up with this Donald Trump guy? So I tried to stay very even about it. I go, well, he sleeps 4 hours a night, and businessman, there's a lot of hypomania in business guys, and of course most business leaders, they have a narcissistic thing, so it's easy to say narcissism and hypomania, but let's look across the landscape of other presidents. I mean, Teddy Roosevelt, hypomanic, narcissist, so I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. I don't fully get it. I did about 10 minutes with Don Lemon, sort of throwing back and forth, trying to navigate without offending anybody, but just observing who this person was. And I had a daytime radio show at that time, and which reminds me, if you do a lot of talking and radio and stuff like that, learn to have an observing ear. So you listen to yourself as you're talking. And rhythm and intensity and these things really are important, more than just content. We're focused on content. But you gotta keep the rhythm and I don't know how to describe it except rhythm. Rhythm is very important.
How you say what you say is equally, or
how you say what you say
important.
For sure. Because I think we know that as physicians, because we're trying to get stuff across to patients, and we know only 20% is getting across. So we're always a lot of economy in what we say. But there's something more, which is intensity and relating and focusing on the caller and rhythmically being there, and then really hearing what you sound like and whether you would listen to yourself. That's an important thing on radio. So the next day I go into my radio station, I was doing a radio show, and the boss goes, hey, that was interesting with Don Lemon last night. Would you do 30 seconds on that? Paraphrase what you said for a 30-second piece for our website. And this guy was a way right guy. So he was, I was, from his perspective, I was being a little disparaging of Donald Trump. But he said, put it on the radio. I go, okay, so I did 30 seconds. And I'm getting up, and he goes, you should do 30 on Hillary, too. We have to balance this out. And I go, well, funny thing, they just released her medical records. And there's some serious stuff going on here. She had a transverse sinus thrombosis with a midbrain stroke. She had 2 DVTs. Why they put her on Armour thyroid, which is hypercoagulable. They were using Coumadin and not Eliquis to treat her. And I was like, what's going? This is a presidential candidate and getting like 1950s level medicine, as far as I can tell. Or, as you all know happens, a celebrity dictates their care. Watch out for that. If you're taking care of celebrities, do not treat them as special or anybody different than anybody else. If you find yourself aroused by taking care of special people, don't take care of special people. Just everybody's a human with, and we're doing our thing as a professional. But it was clear to me something was wrong with her health care. Something was wrong. And I did 30 seconds on, I wonder why Armour thyroid, and where's the evidence that it's hypercoagulable and the transverse sinus, and she's wearing these prism glasses, and she has intranuclear ophthalmoplegia. Who is taking care of this woman? It was sort of my thing. I walked away, didn't think anything of it. I thought I was just a physician analyzing the record that had just been released, and I didn't think I said anything disparaging, even. I just thought I was was really addressing the caretakers, not the candidate, but the caretakers. Fast forward 12 hours, the Drudge Report headline, finally a physician says she's unqualified medically for office.
More Dr. Drew on next week's episode, but right now.
Hey, we're back with Tony Silva and the home repair section of the show. My favorite section of the show. Tony, we're picking up on mistake number 2 to avoid if you think your home has been damaged in a flood. What's mistake number 2 to avoid?
Trying to go it alone with your insurance company, right? Last week, I was pretty passionate, Clint, about like, wake up. Do you even know if something happened to your house? And how would you know? Like, how do you know? Like, do you realize that like State Farm and Allstate, they have publications out there, the largest insurers in the nation. And they're telling you, hey, if your home is damaged in a storm, you need to have it inspected. Here's why people don't have their homes inspected, right? Because they're scared. What if I find something? What if Tony sends his guy out, right? His mistake number 1, you send out your certified expert and you find all this damage. Now what? Now what am I got to pay for that? No, I mean, not if you do it right. That's why you have homeowners insurance. So mistake number 2 is trying to go it alone with your insurance company. You know, you had the wherewithal. Maybe you listened last week. You're like, hey, you know what? Maybe I got some damage. Maybe I should call somebody. Maybe you called me.Maybe you didn't. You called somebody. And somebody comes out and says, hey, Clint, look, we looked at the storm reports, and turns out in July, you're in Little Ferry, New Jersey. And wow, some really bad stuff happened to your house. And we found all this stuff. And they show you all these pictures. I mean, this is what we would do. We would show you all these pictures of, bruise marks on your shingles and dented siding and blown apart shutters. We would show you everything that happened. Well, sometimes people have this great idea like, wow, maybe I just actually hit the lottery, right? Maybe there's so much damage here that I don't need anybody's help. I'm going to call the good hands, or, my good friends, the good neighbor, because they'll treat me right? They'll treat me right, Clint. And they're going to come out and handle the deal for them and make sure that everything that Tony's crew found or Bobby's roofing found gets covered. So mistake number 2 is trusting that your insurance carrier is going to be looking out for your best interest to find everything. Look, I mean, that's like an oxymoron, right? Like hang on a minute. The insurance company is going to send their guy to look at your house to tell you everything that's wrong with it so that they can write you a check to fix it. Right? In a perfect world, like that's supposed to work. But the reality of it is business, man. And it's all about profits and the bottom lines. And I'm just telling you, I've been doing this for a long time. I've helped a lot of people. I've been invited to a lot of Christmas dinners personally from helping people that were, look, just earlier today, we were called by a customer in Annapolis, Maryland, right? Why? Because they know that if the insurance company doesn't do what they think is right, they need some help. So who do they call? They called us. They're like, hey, I don't think this was right. Well, you know what? You made mistake number 2. You tried to go it alone. Like now this customer didn't necessarily know about us back at the, when they made that call. But the reality is, you know how much harder it is to dig out of that hole when we already have it's not, you don't have anything. It's a much harder. I'm telling you, mistake number 2 is trying to go it alone with your insurance company. I mean, how much do people think about their homes? How educated are you about this? You're just not. It's literally like trying to go into an alligator fight knowing nothing about alligators. Like,
how many of these alligator fights have you done, Tony, in your 32 years of home repair experience?
Look, here's the dirty secret about that whole deal. About 30% of the time, and that's a very liberal number, right? 30% of the time, we get a good carrier, we get a good adjuster who does do a good job, and they take care of the customer. That's 3 out of 10 times. The other 7 out of 10 times, it is an estimate that's way too low. It is all the damage has not been discovered, or it's a flat out denial. 7 out of 10 times, we have to go back and be like, hey, wait a minute. Sometimes I would say 30% of the time, 3 out of 10 times, we literally have to we got to get a big stick, right? Like we got to get in the bigger authorities to handle this stuff. And that's what you need. You need a professional.
If you're one of my listeners right now, you hit the home repair lottery, especially if your home was damaged in a recent storm. So go to homerepair.com and contact them there or give them a call. And what's the number, Tony?
It's 877-RED-HOUSE.
All right, more. We're going to come back next week with mistake number 3 and 4, okay? If your house was damaged in a storm. Thanks, Tony. We'll see you next week. I'm pleased to welcome to the greatest show of all time, the smartest guy I know when it comes to technology, and especially for law firms, for municipality, a lot of governments working with this guy, CEO of Toss C3, Mr. Greg Hanna. Greg, welcome to the greatest show of all time.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's our pleasure. And I know about you, but tell the folks about Greg Hanna and how'd you get to be such a big macher when it comes to technology, cybersecurity, cloud computing, etc.
Well, slide rules and paper tape readers and disk packs the size of washing machines, mainframe computers and green bar paper. Clint, I have seen it all. My dad was an electrical engineer, and he worked for major aerospace defense companies like Raytheon, Litton, and Sperry Rand. Now, he even had patents. My dad was a brilliant guy. So when I was around 6 years old, he morphed into a career in the microcomputer industry. And I remember him taking me to this huge trade show in New York City. It was at this enormous building. It was the biggest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And that trip was punctuated by a glorious stay at our cousin's, who lived right off of exit 11 in Newark, New Jersey. And they had a chair that converted into a bed that I had to sleep on. And if you think that the trade show with 50 million computers blew my mind, that chair converting in the bed sure did. And I was always fascinated by all the things that my dad did. I remember one time he took me to a client to install one of these new little microcomputers. And they had these giant mainframe computers with these huge printers. And he would take these like key cards, punch cards, and he would type all kinds of codes and things in it, and it'd feed it into a card reader, push a few buttons, and boom, these giant printers. So they'd start crunching and crunching and crunching. And when they were all through, the most amazing thing came out. You want to know what it was?
What was it?
It was a picture of Snoopy and the Red Baron, just for me. And it showed off the power of computer technology. And that's how I got into all of this, Clint.
That's a great story. I got a postcard from you that I really thought was fascinating. And I did a little research. You sent me this postcard with a picture of Warren Buffett on the front of it. And it says that cybercrime is the biggest danger to humanity. And that's a Warren Buffett quote. Could you talk about that, please?
Yeah, he's not wrong. It used to be nuclear threats, right? Bay of Pigs, all that stuff. That was really scary. But now it's just a constant attack that's coming in from all over the place. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. It's coming from China. It's coming from Russia. It's coming from the Ukraine. It's coming from, just little punks that are out there surfing the net. And they set up these ransomware as a service business they buy on the dark web for a few bucks. And they're out there just wreaking havoc with spray paint cans, like the kids in the back alleys of any city, just out there vandalizing just for kicks, just for having fun, to make your life miserable. And they're doing it every single day.
I'm going to have you back on next week's episode. And I want to know, next week, we're going to talk about your advice for people who want to protect themselves from this kind of stuff. But if people want to get in touch with you, how can people find out more about Toss C3?
Well, you could call me at 888-884-8677 or send me an email at Greg, Greg, at tossc3.com.
TOSSC, like Charlie, 3.com. Okay, great. Greg, thanks so much for joining me here on the greatest show of all time.
Thanks, Clint.
Now that's going to wrap up this episode of the greatest show of all time. We'll be back next Sunday night at 9:30 p.m. Meanwhile, I am Clint Arthur, and thanks for tuning in to the greatest show of all time.
the greatest show of all time.